by governing bodies we've never voted for. According to the conference's website, the conference in Copenhagen is a turning point in the fight to prevent what they claim will be a climate disaster. And I quote, "The science demands it, the economics support it, the future generations require it," proclaims the website. Well, Madam Speaker, I am here to explain why that aggrandizing postulation is complete and utter nonsense, and to warn of the danger that lurks behind this high-sounding rhetoric. The Copenhagen Conference is the culmination of efforts that began in earnest back in 1992. That was the year our New World Order president, George H.W. Bush, submitted the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change to the Senate. It was quickly adopted by a voice vote. For the most part, that 1992 Framework Treaty was filled with grandiose yet vague principles. It asked for long-term CO2 reductions from the 192 nations which signed that contract, yet few of the obligations were spelled out, and there was no enforcement or penalties written into that treaty. It stated objectives, and that was step number one. Step number two came in 1997, when the Kyoto Protocol was established. When the protocol in Kyoto was established, that it included enforceable mandates that meet all of those stated objectives. Madam Chairman, if I could ask for a bit of consideration from the chair at this point, because there's a conversation going on up front that's distracting.
Be in order. The
Madam
gentleman
Chairman,
may proceed.
Madam Chairman, the conversation is still going on. You might. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Step two came in 1997 when the Kyoto Protocol established enforceable mandates to meet those stated objectives that were started 2 years in the earlier network agreement that was sent on to the Senate by President Bush. Well, the 1997 protocol was different than the earlier one because it had enforceable mandates to meet the stated objectives that were stated earlier. This clearly would have meant a fundamental altering of our economy with a dramatic negative impact on the lives of our people. With the Republicans in control of the Senate at that time, President Clinton never submitted the Kyoto Treaty for ratification. Then, in 2001, President George W. Bush announced that we would not sign the Kyoto Treaty due to the enormous costs and economic dislocation associated with complying with the Kyoto mandates. And that was the end of what would have been step number two. So here we are at step number three. And while Kyoto-like agreement is not likely, Copenhagen may well lay the foundations for the future that the globalists who are pushing this agenda envision for us, what they envision for the United States, U.S., us. The threat to us is there, and it is real. A few months ago, H.R. 2454, the so-called cap and trade bill, passed the House and is now waiting action in the Senate. That far-reaching legislation seeks to put in place taxes and regulatory policies that exactly parallel what the Copenhagen crowd would mandate and can be traced back to that same alliance between our domestic radical environmentalists and a globalist elite. This unholy alliance has already had an impact. It is no accident that for over the past 20 years, America has built no hydroelectric dams, no nuclear power plants, no oil refineries, and has brought into production a pitifully small amount of new domestic oil and gas. In essence, our economy has been and is now being starved of traditional energy development. Even the much acclaimed solar energy alternative has been strangled in its cradle. The Federal Bureau of Land Management which is unduly influenced by radical environmentalists, has prevented the building of solar power electric generating facilities in America's vast deserts. This supposedly to protect the habitat of lizards and insects, which are obviously more important to these elitist decision makers than the quality of life of human beings. Our quality of life, us. Again, the forces behind the undermining of America's domestic energy development know exactly what they're doing. Treaty obligations or not, they want to change our way of life, to remake America, whether we like it or not. This isn't about green power. It's about raw political power exercised over our lives. A few decades ago, the Global Radical Environmental Alliance, the Globalist Radical Environmental Alliance, latched on to an apocalyptic theory to justify their power grab. The theory is that the world is dramatically heating up because of how we human beings live, especially us Americans. So controlling us must be the answer to saving the planet from heating up and up and up. When they geared up their crusade, our planet was in one of its many warming cycles. But the illusion that they are trying to create began to disintegrate about 9 years ago when the Earth quit warming and now may be in a cooling cycle. Undaunted, the fanatic claims and their predictions of global warming have now been transformed into a new, all-encompassing warning. So global warming was the phrase which was yelled and screamed at us for almost a decade, but now that has miraculously been changed into climate change. Do they think that the American people are stupid? Do they think that we'll just forget about their predictions of rapid rises in temperatures and that those predictions have been proven 100% wrong? Even the much touted melting of the Arctic ice cap has reversed itself in the last 2 years and is now refreezing and enlarging. The warming has ended, but the power grab continues. What we now are finding out is exactly how ruthless and, yes, how deceitful this power grab has been. It is becoming ever more apparent that during the 1990s, many scientists who refused to go along with the global warming paradigm were denied research grants. Prominent scientists like Dr. William Gray, former president of the American Meteorological Association, found themselves repeatedly rejected for research grants despite their careers of distinguished research with excellence and accomplishments. The liberal press ignored those transgressions, ignored that repression of opposing views. Yet the same press made it a huge controversy when the Bush administration during the Bush administration, NASA asked Richard Hansen, which was NASA's most vocal global warming activist staffer, simply to note when being published that the opinions that he was publishing were his opinions and not necessarily endorsed by NASA. Well, the press made that into a horrible attack on his rights. This was censorship. There were hearings in Congress about that, simply asking this man to acknowledge that it was his opinions and not the official opinions of NASA. Well, how does that compare with the coverage and the outrage over outright repression and denial of research grants to prominent scientists? How does that compare with Vice President Gore's firing of Dr. William Happer as the lead scientist at the Department of Energy? This because Happer was open-minded on the issue of global warming. Not that he opposed it, but that he was open-minded about it. The double standard in the reporting of this issue has been appalling. Zealots can usually find high-sounding excuses for their transgressions. This abusive attack on Happer and so many other prominent scientists, of course, was perpetrated in the name of protecting all of us from a climate calamity, man-made global warming that we were repeatedly warned was going to fry the planet. We can still hear alarm